My condolences to the families of the victims of the Boston bombing, and my congratulations to the law enforcement for apprehending the terrorists. Let's talk about terrorism. The fundamental fact about terrorism is that the terrorists are pursuing a political goal. They murder innocent people because they think it will help them achieve a political end. That's why they do it. They don't reason or make arguments with their ideological opponents. They try to pressure them into doing what they want by increasing the cost of continuing a policy that they object to. They are criminals with a political motive. Now, everybody knows this, at least the people that are following current affairs and know a little history. Let me give you some examples. The IRA, the Irish terrorists, they murdered and massacred and bombed and sabotaged British citizens because they wanted the British out of Northern Ireland. They didn't do it because they hate the British, because they're envious of the British, or because they thought that they could defeat the British by throwing a few bombs. They did it to increase the cost of the British support for Northern Ireland. The Basque terrorists in Spain bombed the Spaniards, killed innocent Spaniards. Why? Because they want independence for the Basque territory. They didn't do it because they hate the Spaniards, because they envy them, or because they thought that they could defeat Spain by throwing a few bombs. They did it to increase the cost of the Spanish policy, which was not to give them independence, to maintain them as part of Spain. The Chechen terrorists bomb and kill innocent Russians because they want independence for Chechnya. That's the reason they do it. They don't do it because they hate the Russians. They don't do it because they envy the Russians. They don't do it because they think they can defeat the Russians by throwing a few bombs and killing a few innocent people. They do it to increase the cost of the policy they object to, which is that the Russians will not give them independence. Now let's get to us. The 9/11 Al-Qaeda terrorists crashed some airplanes into the World Trade Center buildings and also the Pentagon because they wanted to increase the cost of our policies of intervening militarily in the Arab countries, specifically in Saudi Arabia. Because we support Saudi Arabia's royal government and they want to overthrow that government, they are increasing the cost of our support for the government that they oppose. They don't do it and didn't do it because they hate America, because they envy America, because they think they can defeat America, because they're dreaming about a caliphate that will dominate the Western civilization. Some may be dreaming, but that is not the reason why they're doing it. They do it because they want a specific political end. They want the United States bases out of Saudi Arabia, the military support of the United States out of Saudi Arabia, so then they can have a chance to overthrow the royal Saudis and implement a Muslim fundamentalist theocracy like they have in Iran. That's what they want. They want to live under Sharia law and they want to live according to their values, and they don't care who they kill to achieve it. And they say so in the communications every time they do terrorist acts. They say, if you get out of these Arab countries and you leave us alone, we'll stop bombing you and attacking you. So it's very clear, but nobody pays any attention to what they're saying. Now, these terrorists, all terrorists, their means are immoral and evil, besides being misguided. Because terrorism is bad. However, the goals that the terrorists pursue may or may not be good. The public policy that they want may or may not be good. We have to examine independently what is the right public policy. Just because the terrorists are bad doesn't mean that the public policy that they want us to pursue is also bad. We have to examine it irrespective of what the terrorists want. We have to examine the public policy on its own merits. We have to decide whether we want to follow our founding fathers' non-interventionist policy, or we want to have a military interventionist policy all around the world. We have to decide whether it is a proper function of the federal government to liberate and protect foreigners or not. What does the Constitution say? Does it grant us that authority? Is that one of the purposes of the federal government? We have to decide what principle we should use when deciding to intervene militarily. Should it be, like it says in the Constitution, in the common defense of the states? Or are other reasons just as good, like promoting democracy, oil, cleaning a swamp, whatever? That's what we have to think about. And we have to decide this regardless of what the terrorists want or not want. The terrorists are mistaken, and they will pay. Terrorism is a no-win strategy. They will necessarily lose, because even if they happen to be successful someday in some country by using terrorism, they will have destroyed their own country, because if there is a widespread conviction that terrorism is effective and a valid way of pursuing political goals, the society and the government cannot function. No society can function with widespread terrorism. So even if they gain the political power that they're striving for, they would still be destroyed. And they would deserve to be destroyed because they're criminals. Now, that's their problem. That's not our problem. Our problem is to decide what kind of foreign policy we should follow. Whether we should have a military interventionist policy, whether we should do nation building, whether we should be involved in other people's local disputes, or whether we should pursue our own self-interest, follow our founding fathers' example, and the Constitution. If you want to see this debate, which I think is the important thing to have in our country, you can see a few of my interviews, the ones that I did with Congressman Louis Gohmert, Allen West, Clifford May, Ambassador Bolton, the former CIA Director James Woolsey, and many others, and come to a conclusion about what is the right foreign policy, regardless of what the terrorists want. Please let me know what you think.